The US Girl Scouts are warning parents not to encourage children to hug guests this Christmas. The organisation says that the hugs could lead to other types of physical affection and that the child themselves should decide whether or not to give a hug. Girl Scout psychologist Andrea Bastiani Archibald says that it teaches an important life lesson.
Sadly, we know that some adults prey on children, and teaching your daughter about consent early on can help her understand her rights, know when lines have been crossed, and when to go to you for help.
Well, the US Girl Scouts were founded by Juliet Gordon Lowe 106 years ago. They've been around for a while. They call themselves a leadership development organisation promoting confidence, courage and character. It all sounds very good. Let's discuss this now with psychology expert Gina Loudon and women's rights advocate Reese Esq. Great to have you on, ladies. First to you, if I may, Reese. Could there really be worrying consequences if a girl hugs her aunt or her grandparents at Christmas?
Well, here's the question. Does the child decide on their own that they want to participate in the embrace? Yes, it's a hug. Yes, it's the holiday season. We're all feeling very festive. However, children have to learn self-determination, self-autonomy, and they have to realize that they're in control of their bodies. If you don't teach a child early on that they are in control of their bodies and that they are in control of their boundaries, then they're subject to later on not be able to set healthy boundaries. And if a child does not get into the habit of setting healthy boundaries, then what you have is a person who's open to issues like sexual harassment in the workplace and sexual assault and not being able to properly tell people what's acceptable for them.
Gina, what do you think of this? Is it okay to tell parents, you know, you shouldn't encourage your kids to hug family members?
Absolutely not. I think that this is all about communication, and that's the key. If parents are having the age-appropriate conversations with their children that are well documented and data-driven, then they shouldn't have to have any sorts of concerns. First of all, I wouldn't put my child in the presence of anyone who I was concerned might be doing something to harm them, and I would have had those conversations with my children far before we're facing a holiday or any sort of gift-giving situation where they might be put in an uncomfortable position. Having said that, if you have discussed these matters with your children, I certainly hope and encourage all parents to do so, when a child is given a gift, they should be gracious about it. Whatever is family appropriate, different families have certain different levels of affection, but at least a warm thank you and you know, as I think was mentioned in some of the suggestions, maybe at least a high five or a fist bump, something like that. But we do want to raise our children to be gracious recipients, and I think that anything that takes that away is completely ignoring the conversations that should be taking place between parents and their children on a daily basis.
Reese, as you mentioned,
here's the fact of the matter: one in 4 girls are sexually abused. 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused before they turn 18. I would say about the statistics say about 30% of the sexual abuse that happens to a child happens by a family member. So here's the fact of the matter. Children are often not safe around people that we would like to think are healthy people. And unfortunately, we don't always know as adults what the appetite a person may have for a child in a sexual situation. So to say to a child, oh, well, Auntie Joe or Uncle Joe gave you a gift, give them a hug. If the child is energetically showing you apprehension, you as a parent have to take in and participate and be aware of the signs that are now, you know, being presented to you, and be aware of what this child is trying to communicate. If it's nonverbal, if it's apprehension, if it's concern or confusion, then these are things that we have to, as parents, be very, very concerned about. Parents, aunts, uncles, and the village that raise these children, because the signs aren't always completely verbal. Hey, this guy is creeping me out. As an aunt or uncle, you know, you want children to be gracious and receive gifts, but at the same time, we can't do it at the cost of their ability to set healthy boundaries.
Gina, what do you think the Girl Scouts were trying to achieve here?
I think part of, you know, I get a little bit concerned when I see especially some of the more radical feminist bent that the Girl Scouts have taken on, where they're perhaps saying, that, girls don't need to necessarily be taught to be gracious. I think they do. I think boys do too. We all know that children are naturally more into themselves, naturally more self-focused than outwardly focused, and some children just are not naturally gracious, and that's something that's really important for parents to teach. Respect of elders is important for parents to teach as well. So as long as those conversations are taking place, and as long as the most important conversation is taking place, and that is, you should never put your children in a situation at a holiday, given that 1 in 4 children, women, are abused before 18. And there are a lot of boys in that, too. We seem to act like boys don't matter in the world, but actually, as a mother of boys, they do matter to me.
Oh, no,
and so the fact that children are often sexually abused, in family situations, these conversations need to be taken long before any gifts are exchanged and any expectation is made. And so once that gift is exchanged, once that kind deed is done, I think it is important, because you as a parent have determined that these people are safe for your child to be around, that the child is taught respect and manners and respect of elders and whatever the appropriate response is for that child in that moment, because some children have a natural bent toward inwardness, and we need to teach our children to be socially appropriate
Unfortunately,
as well.
the parents don't always know when a person is a safe person or not. Unfortunately, most times when a person is being molested, the parents have no idea if the grandfather or uncle is molesting them. And so the onus is on the parents to be aware, cognizant of what the child is communicating. And more importantly, we can't teach girls to put grace before being able to protect and set healthy boundaries. And oftentimes, especially in this Southern upbringing style, just across the country, we teach young ladies to, oh, thank you, and to make sure that they're always pleasant and always presenting this kind demeanor, instead of saying, someone has offended me and this is not a healthy situation. And it allows young girls to repeatedly find themselves in situations where they're harmed, because most women who their boundaries have been broken by, sexual assault or rape, of course, go on later on to become another victim of rape later on in their future. So what we have to do is learn that a person who doesn't learn these boundaries early on will usually repeat this. And so it's imperative that before we decide that grace is the most important thing and that being grateful, I mean, of course that's important, but we can't do that at the cost of teaching young women what's safe for them and knowing how to speak up and say, you've hurt me, you've offended me, I don't like this, I don't want to hug this person. Energy matters to children, and they understand that way more than they may understand the words. They may not be able to even verbalize why they feel what they feel. So we as a parent and adults in the community have to understand, when a child says, my energy, this doesn't sit well with me, we have to allow that to be okay.
Jeannie, you touched upon this. Do you think there's a danger that by talking about these boundaries and enforcing them, we're going to create children who are afraid of physical contact?
I think that's one concern. I think narcissism is a massive problem in our society. And I think leaving little boys out of this conversation is particularly offensive, because I think that, if I'm not mistaken, boys are more ripe for sexual assault, especially in childhood, than girls. And so I don't know why we leave 50% of the population out of this conversation, other than to sort of assume some sort of superiority, which is bizarre to me. But anyway, yes, we should absolutely protect our children.
Well,
no one is advocating
1 in 4
children
girls,
being gracious
1 in 6 boys.
or respecting. I didn't interrupt you, and I'd appreciate if you didn't interrupt me. Thank you. No one is saying that we should put graciousness. That's not an interruption.
We're having a conversation. It's called dialogue. It's called dialogue.
Actually, you're talking over me. No one's saying that we should put graciousness or respect for elders before protecting our children. But again, if you decide only to protect your child on a holiday when they're already exposed to this relative that they're uncomfortable around, the mistake is already made for a lot of problems going forward. And so I would say that it's the other 364 days of the year that parents need to be listening and parenting and having these conversations with their children, so that they never expose their children. Now, having said that, I've been with many parents who have, encountered horrible things like this. I myself have encountered horrible things like this in my lifetime. So I'm not saying that anyone should be lackadaisical about the cues that children are taking, but it is a balance, and it is something that is really important. And we're not going to solve it by telling our little girl on Christmas Day that she doesn't have to say thank you to Grandma for her gift. I just don't think that that's when we present that as a solution, we're missing out on what is really happening here, in my opinion, and we're putting children at greater danger.
And Reese, just to move, unless you want to respond to that, I'll just move it on slightly. We talked about whether children could grow up afraid of physical contact. Do you think there's a danger just they could become emotionally stunted as well? If a kid hears other children saying, oh, no, you mustn't hug grandmother, it's not right, I was told this, that you're going to distance children from relatives.
Absolutely not, and it's all preposterous. First of all, let's be clear. We're talking about girls specifically because 1 in 4 girls compared to 1 in 6 boys prior to the age of 18 find themselves victims of sexual assault. Secondly, we address the issue of setting healthy boundaries. That's the whole point that the Girl Scouts is hoping to drive home. This is not about a lack of gratitude. This is not about a lack of graciousness. Both of those are societal norms that have to be taught, and they're very key and critical. However, as a society, we tend to pressure girls in ways that we don't pressure boys. If you go to the toy stores, you'll see girls being given toys for learning how to cook and play with baby dolls. You'll see boys be given toys on how to, be astronauts and build rocket ships and be construction workers. So there's a disparity on how we teach and handle our girls. Michelle Obama has noted this as well. So it's important that when we do teach our girls that in relating to other people, maybe this is your first time seeing this uncle or you haven't seen him all year, this person, if you feel something energetically, I want you to trust that. Why? Because as a mother, your job is to teach your child to be able to navigate the world. And you can't do that if you don't properly teach the child how to trust themselves. A child can only trust themselves if they understand that something that I feel within myself gives me cause for pause. And if I have a bit of concern that I should not embrace physically this person because I don't trust it, then that's okay. You have to be able to teach a child how to navigate on their own. And that's issue number 1. So grace, wonderful, love it. Hey, Jack, you got a gift for Christmas? Tell your uncle thank you. Thank you should be sufficient. If a young lady says that she does not want to embrace and give up the control of her body, then she has the right to say so. And we have to create an environment where girls are okay saying no. Here's why.
Reese,
when
I
you
do
get into
apologise.
a
I'm
situation
afraid we
at
have
26, like
run
I
out
was.
of time. I'm going to have to interrupt you there. My sincerest apologies.
Okay.
Many thanks to you both ladies. Psychology expert
worries.
Gina Loudon, women's
Happy
rights
holidays.
advocate
Thank you, and Merry
Reese
Christmas to
Esq.
everyone.
Same to you both ladies.